end zone. Underthrown, touchdown. Trey Tucker to the end zone it goes. Caught! Touchdown, Armand Benz.
It's Bearcat Blitz as we are approaching the start of basketball season here on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, joined as always by my co-host, Neil Meyer of Cincinnati Rivals. You can check them out at thefrontofficenews.com. We are presented by Bet Online, and you know what time it is, basketball fans. The NBA is back, and college hoops about to be back next week. From opening tip-off to buzzer beaters, Bet Online has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. Bet Online has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game, and it's not just the NBA. Bet Online has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, to political props as well. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online. The game starts here. Quick preview of the show before we have a tiny break, and then we dive into some takeaways from the basketball press conferences via Wes Miller, Dylan Mitchell, and Jizzle James on Wednesday afternoon. Latest update on Day Thomas. Will we see him on Monday night? Pretty mysterious, like the mysteries happening on this Halloween day recording. And then we'll get another break in, get to our basketball predictions part 1, the team-wide, team-based predictions. How far will they go, and what will their final regular season record be going into the Big 12 tournament? We'll do all that after these messages on Bearcat Blitz, presented by Bet Online. This is Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. You can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube. Talking Cats with Russ Heltman. Subscribe, rate, and review on all the platforms. It helps us grow the show tremendously. Neil, we'll start with you, my friend. Takeaways from basketball press conferences yesterday. We'll get to the takeaways in a moment, actually. But real quick, inform the people the latest update on Day Thomas from Wes Miller. It's sounding a little bit more serious this time around than it sounded last week when he was in Kansas City updating initially.
Yeah, no, most certainly, Russ. Obviously, that's the biggest takeaway from Wes Miller's press conference is obviously the status on Day Thomas. We heard from Wes Miller last week in Kansas City at Big 12 Media Days, where he announced that Day Thomas suffered what was then to be kind of assumed as a minor setback in the foot injury that he had surgically repaired this offseason following the injury in the NIT. But Russ, just about 1 week away, 4 days away from the home opener versus Arkansas Pine Bluff, things are looking a little differently nowadays. Obviously, Day Thomas did not play in the closed scrimmage versus Saturday versus Pittsburgh that Wes Miller stated, and it's kind of something that they're going to take, quote-unquote, day by day, but they're not going to go from 0 to 100 very short or very quickly there just because of the situation and the seriousness surrounding Day Thomas and the foot injury. But overall, it's something that you should be worried about if you're a Bearcats fan heading into the season, obviously knowing the kind of caliber player that Day Thomas is and was expecting to have this season. Obviously, the injury bug has now hit Cincinnati pretty tough in the opening weeks, but overall, it's a day-to-day thing. They said they don't want to rush him back. They don't want to go from 0 to 100, but they said he's not doing basketball activities, but he is. Wes Miller kind of said it like it's not like he's not doing basketball activities. He is shooting.
Yeah. Basically, Neil, what he's doing is to put it into the basketball activities he's doing. Like what I saw him do yesterday at practice was at the end of practice, just shooting in the stationary form in a walking boot. He's not running around at all, and he was in a walking boot at practice. So they're not out of the woods by any means on this tweak, to say the least.
Yeah, and even then, still something that's not ideal heading into Monday night versus Arkansas Pine Bluff, but it's going to be a situation that they're going to monitor all season. I know Wes Miller kind of stated as well that they don't want to go 0 to 100 and it be something that lingers throughout the whole season. They really want to get this thing right and taken care of before the season starts due to the gauntlet of the Big 12, especially when you go from 18 to 20 conference games. So overall, that's a big thing. And you heard it from the players too, Russ, that they expect Day Thomas to have a big season and the kind of leader and the player he is. You heard the praise from Jizzle James and Dylan Mitchell. So overall, I think it's going to be important that kind of don't rush him back out there and try to get this thing taken care of before the season starts.
Yeah, full quote from Wes here, expanding on his initial comments, saying that I don't have an update on when he'll be back. He said, quote, I don't want to sit here and say he's not going to play on Monday. I don't think we've even broached that yet. It's been a day-to-day, week-to-week thing, kind of day-to-day. Ironic there with his name being day-to-day. What I'm telling you guys is that we're just not going to go from 0 to 100. It's not like he's not doing basketball activities. He's shooting. I don't know if he's going to miss time or not. That'll be a decision we make over the next 5 to 6 days. He was upbeat at practice from what I saw yesterday, Neil. Seems like he's in great spirits, and he was walking around pretty seamlessly on that boot. So I don't know. I don't think it's definitely not, to me, a long-term issue. And as I wrote in the article yesterday, they don't need him in these first 3 games at all. They do not need Day Thomas to be out on the floor. They should not need him at all to win against Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and who else they got? Let's see. I'll pull up the schedule real quick. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, then Morehead State, then Nichols in your first 3 games, all at home. Those should be 20-point plus wins all across the board for Cincinnati. Where you might need them is at Northern Kentucky on November 19th, which is roughly 3 weeks away. That's a spot that the Bearcats lost this game 2 years ago on the road at Northern Kentucky. And in a kind of a hostile environment like that, you just want all your best veteran pieces, and especially a guy who can get you nearly 2 steals a game, which is what he averaged last year, 1.7 steals per game, one of the best ball swipers in the entire conference. Wishing all the best to Day Thomas as he continues to recover from that foot injury. From my vantage point, it seems like Wes Miller and everybody in Bearcats basketball program kind of shooting it straight here that it's not going to be a major problem. Knock on wood, it will not be for Day Thomas. Neil, my top takeaway from the press conferences leading into the season was Jizzle James. Just his mentality, the way I think he's matured tremendously over the last year, and his self-awareness of knowing what he needed to work on in the offseason, seeking that work and seeking those improvements and what to work on from the coaching staff, internalizing that. And then from what we saw in the short stint of hoops that we've seen them live against another team, I thought Jizzle's biggest improvement was defensively, which is what he said he worked on the most this offseason. I thought his perimeter defense was great in that game against Ohio State. Maybe not necessarily great, but solid to good, which is better than you can say it was for much of his freshman season. And he's also taken a more kind of team approach, it feels like, this year, with his increased playmaking acumen, his increased willingness to find players all across the floor offensively, and the shooting, Neil, the third kind of part of the triarchy of improvements for Jizzle James, talking about extending his length, what that impact could bring to Cincinnati, especially a Cincinnati team that I'm going to try to get the nickname to catch wind, Flight of Fear. I mean, this is a team that if you are extending 3-point range out to 24, 25, 26 feet, then it's going to make those lobs to the rim that much easier to access. So I thought a very measured, solid press conference from Jizzle James, and a guy, Neil, that we could easily see breaking out and to be one of the best guards, not only in the conference, but in the country this season if he hits his ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a big thing too, Russ, is everyone kind of knew that Jizzle James had opportunities to go elsewhere. And he kind of even said it yesterday in his press conference as well, that when he was asked, was like, hey, was there ever a thought of you maybe leaving and going to venture out and see what else was out there? And he said there was never a thought. He has all the belief in the world in what Coach Wes Miller and this staff is doing. So overall, to hear that was kind of a good thing. That kind of shut a lot of things down from some people out there who were always assuming, oh, he probably had options out there in the portal and X, Y, and Z. But you know how those rumors kind of circulate. But overall, to hear everyone say that they have the belief in Wes Miller again and kind of reiterate that was also great to hear. But Russ, my biggest takeaway from the press conferences before we hit the next topic was, how about Dylan Mitchell saying that Fifth Third Arena is going to win some ball games this year? I thought that was pretty cool. He said that
he's already played in the atmosphere coming from Texas.
When he said he played at Texas last year, he said the crowd was pretty lit. He goes, when I went out there for that jump ball, I was pretty frightened, not going to lie. And I mean, when you hear that, I mean, Fifth Third was rocking. That was the Big 12 opener, first Big 12 game at Fifth Third Arena. So overall, that was pretty cool to see. But for him, a guy who has only been here for a short, extended amount of time, to really kind of see what that environment was like in the one atmosphere last year. I know we talked to Max Abmas and I think Dylan Mitchell after that game, Russ, where they were like, man, we didn't think this was going to be like this. We didn't know what to expect. And then they came in, they're like, yeah, man, this was a Big 12 environment right here. And I mean, that's Fifth Third Arena every night. You see the videos circulating of what a game day looks like, but to hear that opponents are getting frightened out there before a jump ball to start the game, I mean, that's a great sign to hear if you're the fans in Fifth Third Arena. So they're excited to be back at Fifth Third on Monday, but the fans got to bring the support. I know Dylan even mentioned it himself. It's going to be a battle in the Big 12. It's going to be about who wants it more for those 40 minutes. I mean, Cincinnati's projected to finish 6th in the Big 12, but to hear that and kind of strike some fear into people's eyes of wanting to play at Fifth Third Arena was pretty cool to hear.
That it was. And another thing that stood out from Dylan Mitchell, well, two things. The first, we'll start with the fun one, the dog story of him talking about how his dog beat him here. And he talked about that and the getting to know the Bearcats clip that they posted maybe about 6 weeks ago or something from Dylan Mitchell about how he had to send his I guess he's got 2 dogs.
Yeah, I think him and his girlfriend have 2 dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of them was sent early because of logistics and getting to Cincinnati and moving or whatever. So one of the dogs came to Cincinnati before the Mitchell or his girlfriend even got here. And Coach Chad Dollar, Neil, you and I know Coach Dollar, he's willing to go above and beyond. He'll stay up all night. He'll do whatever it takes to land a great transfer, to land a great player out of the recruiting ranks. But as Dylan Mitchell noted, not a dog guy. And that was the line for Coach Dollar. He was not wanting to go pick up the dog.
And if I remember right,
so was it Wes Miller that went and got it, or was it was maybe
I think he said Jake Keelan, who was on staff at the time. Now the Cubcats head coach went and got it, but the dogs actually
Jake, that's what he said.
Yeah, the dogs stayed at Wes Miller's house.
He met Wes before Dylan did fully as a Bearcat. So obviously Dylan met him on his visit and all that stuff. And he talked about that. It's a great segue into why he picked UC. I don't think we hadn't had Dylan in just by himself on the mic yet since he got to Cincinnati. So I wanted to ask him why he chose Cincinnati. And it was just passion. Passion was the number one thing that he landed on from Wes Miller, saying that they had like a 3-4 hour chat on his visit just about basketball and life. And it's the same kind of theme that we hear about Wes Miller from his players, from his former players all the time. And it's why, Neil, this program, I think, has risen from the ashes as fast as it has compared to where they were coming off the John Brandon experience a few years ago. He cares about his players. He loves his players. He loves the sport of basketball. And you can just feel that word, passion, in just about everything he does, whether it's watching him conduct practices to his ability to go from an AAC program that was in the middle of the pack his first year in that conference to a program now that's bringing in top 50 talent from the recruiting ranks and top 50 talent from the transfer portal in the same season.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was very cool to hear too. Obviously, he even kind of noted, he goes, it's not about the city. It's not about where I'm going to be living. It's strictly about basketball. And he said when he came to the campus, he sat with Coach Miller for about 4 hours. And he said right away following his visit to Cincinnati, it was like, this is the guy I want to play for. So just because of how passionate Coach Miller is. And I mean, Russ, you and I see that on a somewhat daily basis, somewhat consistent basis from being around the program. And I mean, Wes Miller and the staff go above and beyond to check on everybody, not even just their players, the coaches, but also us media members as well. So overall, the relationship, he's a very good, personable human being outside of the basketball arena as well. So that's a great sign to see. He really cares about the community, cares about a lot of other things as well. Obviously, the mental health aspect.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Good point.
Pretty vocal about that over the last year and a half with the Aziz Bandego situation and then this charity scrimmage versus Ohio State. So overall, players can kind of sense that with the coach, especially I'm myself a high school volleyball coach, so I kind of know when your players are passionate about how they feel towards you. So it's good to have those relationships. You want to build those relationships, and it only helps you in the program get stronger in the future. So to hear that only says great things about Cincinnati. So especially with his caliber, he was all over the country taking visits from what the reports were saying, but to come to Cincinnati and know this is where he wanted to be right after his visit, it's a pretty good sign at what Wes Miller and his staff are doing, but it also says what they're selling about Cincinnati as well.
That it does. And we unfortunately got to take a quick break to sell some people right here on some great products. Stick with us through these messages, including one about Cherry Bundy, a natural kind of tart cherry juice drink with no added sugar, natural products, natural ingredients, made with 60 tart cherries in one 8-ounce bottle, which you can find at cherrybundy.com. They're available on Amazon and retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. They're proven to reduce soreness, increase your recovery after a workout. They contain naturally occurring melatonin to help you sleep later on in the day or night, help support immunity to stave off those fall sniffles, those colds, those flus flying around all around this time of year. And they're used by your Bearcats, the football team and the basketball teams. Use Cherry Bundy to recover after practice, to recover after games, and to make sure they optimize their athletic performance. I love using Cherry Bundy after my workouts. It tastes good. It's a solid tasting drink, and it's 100% cherry juice. Nothing added, no fluff, no fillers, no preservatives, none of that. Just pure tart cherry juice, which has proven to be a new kind of natural elixir of sorts for recovery in terms of getting access to these awesome effects of Cherry Bundy cherry juice. CHERIBUNDI.com to get on their prescription or get on their subscription plan, different kind of subscription plan to get a good discount on these bottles, good discount on their products, or you can get them on Amazon or at retailers nationwide, as I mentioned, including Publix and Kroger. Head to CherryBundy.com today to pick up some awesome tart cherry juice. Taking a quick break here on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, it's prediction time for the 2024-25 basketball season. Cincinnati Bearcats started off with Arkansas Pine Bluff on Monday night, Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. We will have a show on Monday kind of getting to our projected team MVP, our projected breakout player, and all that good stuff individually. But team-wise, Neil, I'll start with you. What is your final record prediction for the Bearcats, and where do you have them finishing their season? Will it be all the way at the end, national title? I'll be a little shocked if either of us pick that, or some point in the NCAA tournament, or missing the tournament altogether. What's your prediction?
Yeah, Russ, that's a great thing. Obviously, there's 31 games in the regular season, so I'm expecting the Bearcats to – there's no reason Cincinnati should not finish the non-conference slate, Russ. Let's be honest, 10-1, 11-0.
One loss. Anything more than one loss is going to be probably a disappointment.
Right, and the only team I see right there in the top non-conference slate that gives you that kind of loss, that could give you that loss, is the crosstown shootout. I think Cincinnati can handle Dayton. I think they can handle Villanova. So overall, I think
Villanova's going to be tough. That's a top 25 team on the road. That's going to be difficult.
So overall, I think if you get out of non-conference 10-1 and you go 10-1 in non-conference, let's go. You're playing 20 conference games. If you can go 13-7 in the Big 12. So that's
wow. We did not plan this, people. We did not plan this. I have 23-8 as well. I projected 23-8. Continue, Neil. I'll get the money.
Yeah, I think if you can go 23-8, you get yourselves back to the NCAA tournament, and then you can also establish yourself to make a deeper run in the Big 12 tournament. Obviously, they made a big run last year, but 23-8, I think, sounds realistically. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, projected to finish 6th in the Big 12 preseason coaches pool, but there's no reason that Cincinnati should finish any lower than that. If you're asking me, I know that last year they had a lot of games where it was one possession, just a couple point difference. I think it was like 4 games for 4 losses, Russ, by a total of like 7 points or something crazy. But overall, I think 23-8 sounds reasonable. I think this is a team, like we've talked about all offseason, that's capable of going to the second weekend at least and making a deep run. But I'm going to say at least make the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament.
I'm with you, Neil. 23-8 overall record prediction is what I'm going with. I just think 10-1 is the bar to meet in the non-conference. We could start talking serious ceilings if they go 11-0 and enter undefeated in the non-conference, but I think that's a little bit too much to ask. I do have them winning the crosstown shootout this year, and I have them falling at Villanova. I think Villanova is kind of getting overlooked a little bit nationally. I think they could end up being a top 20 easily team by that point in the season, maybe a top 5 team by the time, not top 5, maybe a top 15 team by the time we get to December. So that's going to be a really tough contest during the week on the road at Villanova. I think they dropped that one. And then I have them going just like you. I got them going 23-8 overall with a 13-7 mark in the conference slate. There's going to be some road matchups I think they lose, maybe 1 or 2 games at home that they drop to some really tough opponents. But all in all, they get a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament with a 23-8 overall regular season mark. I think that keeps them in the top 25 for most of, if not the entire 2024-25 season. And then I wanted to do it. I wanted to put them in the Elite Eight, but I couldn't quite bring myself objectively to get there. So I'm giving them a Sweet 16 run. I think they get through the first weekend, get to that Sweet 16, and then that portion of the calendar, that moment is the first taste for almost all these guys except for Dylan Mitchell. And I think it's a little bit too much for them to overcome against teams that are just going to be comparably just as good as them, if not better, talent-wise. So give me the Bearcats to finish 23-8 overall. Neil's got them going out in the round of 32. Wouldn't surprise me. I got them going out in the round of 16. Neil and I pretty kind of aligned on how we see this program finishing out and how we see them executing in 2024-25. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. We'll be back to get you ready for West Virginia week ahead of the Bearcats' next matchup at home on Saturday, November 9th. And, of course, get you ready for Arkansas Pine Bluff. The seasons are colliding. The equinox in Cincinnati Bearcat sports land is here as basketball and football are about to be playing together. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. I'm back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too.